Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fool's Den, the space where we explore what it really takes to grow, stay consistent, and push through the days when quitting feels greater than continuing. So every week we're going to break down the mindset and habits on, well, transformation. So today's episode is no different from any of that. Today's motto and our theme is going to be progress isn't always loud, but it's always worth it. And with that in mind, I'd like to welcome our guest. She is someone that I personally feel that embodies this kind of mindset. Her name is Miss Moore, Miss Sharon Moore. Would you like to tell us some stuff about yourself? I know you go by many titles, you go by many names. Which is your favorite? I'm not sure.
At the moment, Gigi, but
Gigi. What is a Gigi?
I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a professional, and I'm a Gigi. I'm a Gigi, so I got grandbabies.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's like when you can't get rid of the 18-year-old, it's round two.
It's the best round,
So what's that like for you?
different.
And in what way?
I think you get to see your legacy reflected
Okay, okay.
earlier than you anticipated.
Amen to that, but it's always good. So when we're talking about legacies, what exactly is your legacy? Because I know you manage a lot of things. You said you're a GG, you're an HR professional as well. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I think you're still building your legacy until the day you leave, honestly. And so it is what it is. It is what you choose it to be, but I'm still in the process of building. I like how you started. It is purpose, is transformation, is experiencing, is opening up the doors, providing opportunities where you can, living out loud, living your purpose out loud and on purpose.
Okay, being audacious with it. I like that. I like that. So I guess my question for you is, would you define yourself as a successful person? Because you made it to Gigi status, right?
I
Once you
did.
make it out of mom status or dad
Woo!
status, you make it to that grandparent level.
I'm
That's
telling you.
that's prestige.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is. It is. That parent stage is like the battleground. Everybody defines success differently. And I think over time, mine has evolved, obviously. And you start out young and ruling, wanting to rule the world and think that money and wealth is going to do it all for you. And you quickly find out that that's not the case and you seek something else. And then I sought security, I sought safety, I sought family, I sought career, I seek experiences, all of the things. And I think you have to find and define what success is for you and don't allow other people to define it for you. And it took me a long time to stop trying to compare myself to anybody else because God created this. He created this. And so the only competition I have is to live his purpose out loud and on purpose. And so my success is peace of mind. My success is that I can be comfortable and enjoy what it is that I worked all my life to get to and just be in the moment. And that's enough for me. That's what I call success. Live in the moment. And I know it's cliche and I used to hear people say that when I was younger and I'm like, yeah, whatever type stuff. And now I get to experience it and I'm like, yeah, peace of mind,
Peace of mind.
live in
So
the moment.
success to you is more peace of mind, like living in the moment kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because if you don't make yourself stay in the moment, and we all struggle. I struggle with it even today, even in this decade. If you don't force yourself to stay in the moment, you miss everything. You stress about everything. That's not good quality of life. And so my struggle, my desire, and what I try to work on every day is my peace of mind and in being in the moment.
So I'm guessing you got a lot of experience under your belt. I don't mean to put people business out there like that, but you seem wise enough to have some experience under your belt. When is a time when you really realize that, like, hey, I want more for myself, and so I'm going to go about getting it?
I think I've always known it just because of how I grew up. My mother, God rest her soul, but my mother was a teen mother to my older brother. And my mother didn't finish school. My mother didn't have a whole lot to give other than her time and whatever she had, you had. Good woman. And she always told me that I could be more than what I thought I could be, even if she couldn't articulate it in those exact words. She was always proud. uh, tough but proud. And I remember being in the third grade, oddly enough. And when you sit back and you reflect on life a lot, there's these pivotal moments that come flying back into your mind. And I remember being in third grade. I told this story on a stage once, and I'm sitting in the group, reading group, way back when we used to sit in a little reading group. We had the little flip pages or whatever,
I
all the
remember them
stuff.
days.
I'm
I
really
remember them.
aging myself. And I happened to be sitting next to this flipboard, and there's a little spider, a little black spider that was crawling across the page. And I was terrified, and I screamed, and I kind of jumped back, and the teacher told me to be quiet because black spiders don't bite black people. And I don't know, I quite understood what that meant, but I just knew it made me feel a certain type of way.
Hmm.
And as soon as I got home, I told my mom about it. And she said, "Girl, don't mind them." She said, "They just afraid of you being great." And she said, "Because you're going to be whatever it is you want to be. And they ain't got nothing to say about it. Only God does." And at that moment, I knew that, look, I could show you better than I could tell you. And I wanted more than what she thought I could have. That teacher, that is. So it's always been kind of ingrained in the back of my mind.
So you said you kind of grew up with it, and you've just lived in that kind of power.
I don't call it wasn't power to start with. And I don't want anybody ever to think that it was easy or anything because I still go through my struggles. But there was always something in my mind, in my heart, in my soul that says, you don't have to be a statistic. You don't have to be what they say you're going to be. You could do more than you want. Like you could do anything. You do whatever you want to do. And it always nagged in my mind. And it nagged at me so much to say that if I didn't try and I became what they said I was going to be, and if I became that statistic or whatever the case may be, would I regret it? And so I didn't ever want to have to regret it. And so I just tried and tried and tried and just said, okay, if this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it. And I found faith early in life. And I know all of my teachings said that I can have whatever it is that I asked for and that he
Hmm.
says I can have. So it just always stuck in my mind and it still does to this day. Now, it may not be. Sometimes I ask for some things and I don't necessarily get those things, even though I feel like I work toward those things.
What you mean by that?
Sometimes those doors are blocked for a reason. And then, like down the path, you turn back and you look and you like, I'm sure glad I didn't get that. I'm sure glad that that didn't happen.
Look, I'm just getting to that age in my life where I'm starting to understand that thought process, right? Like we all getting to that point where we're like, hey, I'm working towards X, Y, Z, and I'm working towards this and that, and then the door gets shut in your face, and then you're sitting there like, oh well, what am I supposed to do now? Well, keep
Hmm.
moving. You'll figure it out. Is that
Exactly.
that's a beautiful thing. So, would you say throughout your journey you've changed? Have you noticed like your change throughout your journey from that
Oh
third
my
grade
God.
little girl to who you are now?
Oh my God. Yes. I'm thankful for the person I am. I'm thankful for the person I was because I had to go through all of that to get to here. I think I didn't start out being assured of so many things. I'm more sure of things now than I was in my past. Some things I'm still unsure about, but I was so unsure about so much and worried about what everybody else thought. Looked for people to give me peace, looked for people to give me love. I sought that in a lot of different places, a lot of different people that did not work out for me in life. And I mean, it was a struggle, but you evolve, hopefully, prayerfully, you evolve. And as I evolved, I continued
That's
to
the
find
key
my own
word in
strength
it.
and my own
Hopefully.
voice. Yeah. You find your
So,
own voice and what's true to you.
I like that. I like that. What's true to you? So, what's a? Because we always talk about our successes, we always talk about
Hmm.
our achievements, but I think what doesn't get talked to about enough is what we consider our failures, which me personally, I don't consider anything to really be a failure. If I learned something from it, it was never really a failure. It just didn't work out at that time, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what's a failure of yours that brought you success long term or something that's memorable?
And to your point, I don't necessarily see them as failures. I see them as life lessons
I like that.
and lessons that I had to go through in life. And so there's so many. I mean, and there's not one. So if you're not failing, you're not learning. I think there's progress on the other side of pain. There's growth on the other side of pain, and you have to go through that to get to that. And so there's been a lot of those moments in life that I've gone through in like relationships, friendships, whatever the case may be, that I regret because you want the storybook. I wanted the storybook life. Married my high
Storybook
school
life.
sweetheart and thought that it was going to be everything, and it wasn't. And so I thought it was a failure. It was not. It was a life lesson.
So who
It was a
writes your
life
story
lesson.
now?
I do. I do. And if anytime I don't, then somebody else is writing it for me, because it was already written before I got to this earth. And if I listen to my great creator and just follow that, follow what it is that he gives me that I feel is true to me, then I'm good. But if I let somebody else dictate that, it always goes sideways. If somebody else tells me that I should be doing, and girl, did you know, and you should be doing this, and you should be doing that, it gets in my head, plays with my mental. And then I have to work through that and get back to who it was that I was. I don't have to be the Joneses. I don't have to be the Smiths either. I can be the Moore and be all right with it.
I like that the more.
I
So
can.
so what kind of
I
advice would
got,
you
I
have
got,
to those
I
that are
got a
going
group
through
of.
their struggles now, right? Those that are because my audience, I talk to parents a lot, and there's a lot of parents that are co-parenting, single parents. I don't like that
Mm,
term a lot, single parents, but
you
a
just
lot of
parenting.
them get so confused and fogged up with all the struggles that life has
Hmm.
to
Yep.
give us. What would you say to them? Coming
You
from where
know
you
what?
came from and seeing the things that you've seen, what kind of advice would you give them?
Let me go to this parent thing, and first and foremost, because I want to stand in that for just a minute, because I felt like I failed in that space too for a minute. And let me tell you, I always wanted to. I think every parent wants to give their children what it is that they did not have. And in that, sometimes you lose sight what it was that you did have and that you did experience that made you the person you are. So don't forget to give them that experience and show them that versus trying to give them everything and allowing them to work toward that. The other thing is that I did grow up in a single parent home. Like I said, my mother was a teen mother, and she had a second kid, which was me by the time she was 20, and there was two more that followed. And so it was a struggle every day, day in, day out. And I always knew that if I had children, I did not want that same experience. And so if you want something different, you have to do something different to break those cycles, to break that generational curse. And I try consciously all the time to do that. And so even having children of my own, my children, you and your brother, first set of children, first set of twins
And we will
that
edit
I
that out.
had.
We ain't trying to tell people we relate.
I
It ain't that I don't
it
claim
was it
you or
was a
nothing. It's just for the
well,
it's for
whatever.
the
They
back
got to
and
know
forth.
it's life, and I don't hide life. I don't hide life at
You're
all.
right. You're right.
And it's a struggle. I don't try to be anything other than who I am, but it was a struggle. And the reason it was a struggle is because I was in a single parent household raising young men, and I did not know what to do. But I did know that they were young men, and I was very conscious about the relationship. And even though it did not work out, which I do consider a failure too, but even though it did not work out, I was very conscious about how I spoke about him and how I introduced him, how he was a part of and chose to be a part of, because it was never going to be about me, but their relationship, and I couldn't be part of the reason that I couldn't be a part of the reason of anything. And so, like, if you want something different, be something different. And even if you're in a household, even if you're parents, even if you're in a relationship that didn't work out and you have children, do something different, be something different. At one point, you loved each other enough to bring life in life that you love. And if you love that life as much as you say it is, respect it in how you parent and how you co parent.
I like that. I like that. You know, that brings me to something that I always hear is it takes a village
Hmm.
to raise a child. And
Yeah.
so, hey, cat's out the bag, cat's out the bag now. Now that, my audience knows that, you are my mother, you raised me and everything. I've realized in my life where you consider it may have been a failure, it was actually, it worked out. And because I've realized in life, and I think some of my brothers realize this as well, is that, our creator, God, uh, Allah, whoever you believe to be that source, that ultimate power, he never left me in lack. He never left anybody in lack because every time I left one space, there was always another space welcoming me and being like, okay, so this is what we're going to teach you from here. Because from that standpoint, I have I have two biological parents, but I have many fathers, I have many mothers, and I learned that love all around, and it's been a beautiful experience all the way around. And this human experience.
I agree.
I love that. One of the there's I think there's a viral video going around out right now on it was like a Thanksgiving thing. It was a young girl in a church. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but it was a young girl in a church, and they passed her the microphone to tell her, what she was thankful for. And it looked like a Baptist church, so we ain't gonna say too much on that. But she get on the mic and she chokes up on it at first, and she was like, you know what, I'm not gonna say nothing. And then they was like, no, 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 go. And she was like, I'm thankful for my stepmom because she listens to me more than my actual mom.
Hmm.
And the whole church went crazy. And they chastised the child a little bit. And what I thought that I don't necessarily think they did the right thing. They might have done the right thing in their mind, but that was a teaching moment. Because learning from where I come from now, growing up in your household, having my own household, raising my daughter, it's tough. These kids out here talk a little reckless. They go it don't matter if you just got done working 9 hours nonstop. These kids gonna be like, but what about that Pop Tart? Or what about this? But what I'm very thankful for in my life, at least, is when I got in those moments, whether it was with the person I'm co-parenting with or even my child personally, I always had people in my life that would take a moment and they would teach me something. It was up to me to listen, but they would teach me something and be like, hey, instead of doing this, we're gonna go about this. Because what the church could have done is step down and been like, okay, hey, little girl, you gotta understand your mom is working 70, 80 hours a week just to make sure you and your kid, your friends and your brothers and sisters is taken care of. And your stepmom, she just gotta come in here, course correct a little bit, right? And I love that. I love that I can see that now.
Yeah.
Because there was times
But
with my daughter.
you know what we don't do as parents well, and what I feel like I don't do well is that, and I talk to a lot of folks in my space and work or whatever, and especially mothers, and they always have this guilt, and they're putting in too many hours, and they're doing X, Y, and Z, and they're doing it all for the sake of their children, right? The thing is what you got to understand is if you stop focusing on the quantity and focus on the quality, you'll be all right. But in the midst of that, and when they have a better understanding, what we don't do well, and what I feel like I didn't do well, is you have to talk about it. You have to educate, make sure they understand, because to that little girl, it looked like her mom wasn't part of, right? And so she gravitated to somebody that would give her that quality time or whatever the case may be. While mom is over here working all these hours trying to make sure she took care of the household. Why is it that conversation and that understanding? And I just don't know that we do enough of that. And hindsight is 2020, because now I just sometimes send these random texts to my group and say, you know what? As a parent, I could have done better in doing this. When you know better, you do better. And I just want to break the curse and say it.
Love that saying, when you know better, you do better. I use that all the time. I stole that from you.
Hmm.
Because the one thing that I hated when I was growing up was stay in a child's place. Now, me personally, I do believe there are things that a child's place is, and then there are things that a child's place aren't. Like nowadays, we have to have that open communication. We have to be able to like have certain conversations. So when I'm I almost said chopping up, but when I'm having discussions with my daughter about, XYZ, we have an open conversation. Like if she's upset about something, she'll tell me, Daddy, I'm frustrated, which is hilarious to hear a toddler say, Daddy, I'm frustrated. Because we had to go from, why are you throwing this across the floor? Are you upset and frustrated that you can't make this do what you want it to do? Or are you upset we didn't go to the park today because, it's 30 degrees outside? It's one of those, like, hey, have an open, honest communication style with your child, because you will be surprised what those kids will talk about afterwards.
What you learn, look, by the time I got to the last one, there was a whole lot of conversing. And sometimes I heard some stuff I didn't want to hear, but you got to be open to hearing it. And that's the tough part. That's the tough part.
You
But when
always got
they,
to be
when,
prepared for those tough conversations. But what I learned late, my daughter has to learn early. Just
hmm
like I learned whatever my metaphorical ceiling is her theoretical floor.
Right.
So that's
Right.
just
I
that's
totally
how
get it.
at least I walk in it because that was what was done for me, for all the
I
people
totally get
that,
it.
paved the way.
Yeah, and then going back to this whole conversation and that open conversation about, and seeking to understand what it is that they want to do, how they feel. I think the other thing that we don't do really well, and that is, I don't know, it's everybody considers it this new thing. I don't consider it a new thing. I think I consider it a health thing, and this is mental health. And part of your mental health is being able to converse and not have that stuff down. Again, if you want something better, do something different. And I learned in our community that sometimes it's like what you said, stay in a child's place, and some things should be said, some things should not, or whatever the case may be. And I think you take that with a grain of salt, but you have to be able to converse about those things. You have to be able to communicate about those things. You have to be able to work through some things that may be traumatic in your life or whatever the case may be. And so I consider that a mental health refresh. That's part of your what you should be doing. I think that's more important than your physical health. I mean, both are important, but your mental health is more important in
Talk
my
about that
mind. And
mental health
so,
hygiene.
yeah, talk about it, converse about it. And when you can get those things out and you can set the stage of what true communication, real communication is, they don't have to deal with that on the back end of life, right? That's one less thing they have to worry about.
Look, I've done that for the most part for my daughter, and then it was, I will say, because I come from a background where like we believe in tough love, and I had a lot of my verbiage and my vocabulary was very rough. So like to be able to explain I care for you is gonna sound like I'm insulting you a little bit, but it's not like that. But my daughter would look at it and she'd be like, Daddy, you being mean. So I had to switch it up and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm over here basically, going off the whims of a toddler, and I'm like, I had to learn that about myself, just to
Hmm.
soften myself up a little bit to be able to have conversations. And then nowadays, whenever she comes to me with something, she'll say, Daddy, I got something to tell you. I'm like, oh, thanks for coming to me with this. And I will
Yeah.
say, I it's probably right because my daughter she is me 2.0. She is me in every way that I couldn't be. Like she's loud, she's audacious, she gonna talk back to you if she thinks she can get away with it. And she here to have fun. For her, a child's place is having fun. And
And that's
as
the
a
way it should
parent
be.
now, knowing what I know now, that's where I want her to grow.
Yeah.
Environments of love, playfulness, and then understand the world as you go along.
Amen. Amen.
Now, would what advice would you give your younger self now? Going through all of your life experiences, is there anything that you would change, or is there any advice that you would give your younger self or your younger
Yeah,
self?
I,
Because a lot of
I
times there's
do.
people living similar lives.
I think we live in a hurry. We want it now. We want instant gratification. We think that's success. We want all the money, and yeah, I ain't gonna turn down no money, but we want all the money. And we think that's gonna make us happy, and we want it right now. And we move in that way too. And I just say, if I could tell my younger self to just be patient with yourself, be patient and love yourself. Experience what it is that you're meant to experience in that moment, and then find a lesson in it, and then move with intention. Because if you never find a lesson in it, you repeat it. If you're running so fast and you move through without experiencing, you miss a whole lot. So be
This
intentional about it when you find the life lessons in it, and then just be thankful, like every day. And sometimes I see these things and it's like hashtag gratitude, hashtag whatever, whatever, thankful or whatever. I don't need a hashtag. Tell me that, because see, I woke up this morning, uh, and I have three thriving sons in whatever way they feel like they want to thrive. I have grandchildren. I have a husband who waited 30 plus years to make me his wife. I have a career that I found purpose in, and I have friends that allow me to be me and don't try to change me, but are blessed to be in my space. I mean, it's an evolution. It's an evolution. So be patient with yourself, experience the moment, find the lesson in the moment, move from there with intention.
next time I get you on this show, we're gonna talk about finding your purpose, because I think
Hmm.
you can shine a light on that, because there's a lot of people out there that feel that they're walking around purposeless, but are actually walking in their purpose the entire time. They just don't
the
know it.
entire time. And I didn't know it. I actually didn't know it. I thought I was still seeking it. And it changes some, but not too much. But I now understand what that purpose is. It doesn't come with it or anything. And I thought it came with a title. And I know it's probably not most popular to say in corporate America, but I always tell people when I walk into a room and I start talking to them and I was like, I found purpose in my work. And I do understand that my impact is much larger than the seat that I sit in. And when they understand that it's my purpose and I'm intentional about what it is that I say I want to do, it's intentional, it's purposeful, and I do it for a reason. And I want to open doors for people that may not have that opportunity. How dare I sit at a table and not advocate for them that are coming up? How dare I sit at a table and not share their experience? Because a lot of times at that table, those folks don't get our experience. They don't get where we come from. They don't get how we're striving. And we may get overshadowed. And how dare I sit at the table and not do that? And so that's part of my advocacy and that's part of my purpose is to do that.
Now, if you don't mind my asking, how do you go about doing that and living in that purpose? How do you go about, advocating?
And look, I think you sit at a table, and so if I'm talking about, just for example, I actually sit in the space of impacting some very huge projects, initiatives, life-changing type situations, and I think everybody comes to work wanting to do good. I just think sometimes they're not, they don't know what they don't know, and if for some reason an experience of a certain people is not accommodated in that work, then I at that table saying, hey, well, have you thought about, and let me share something with you. And sometimes when you're vulnerable enough to share a story, whether it's your story or a story that you encountered along your journey, you share that in the right way and at the right time to impact what it is that we're doing. That's advocacy in my mind. If it's the person that you see day in, day out, doing their best, working their hardest, there before anybody after. You don't have to put all them hours in, I'm gonna tell you that. But working smarter, engaging people, collaborating with people, and they're the go-to people. Typically, the go-to people are the people that you overlook when it comes to that next job. And all you have to do is set their name at the table and say, hey, well, what about such and such? Because I always see them doing this and I see them doing that. And they're like, you're right. That's my go-to person. It's little things like that that mean the difference to those folks. And they don't have to know you spoke their name in that room. They don't have to know that you fought that battle at that table or shared that experience at the table. Because if you're living your purpose, you ain't got to brag about it. You know what I mean? I don't
Well,
seek anything from them, but I think they'll figure it out. And all I ask is to pass that on. All I ask is to pass that on. Do that for somebody else when you're in the room or at a table. And if you do that every day, when you wake up in the morning and you see that person in the mirror, then you don't have to worry about it. Because my thing to myself is when I look at myself, if I can't look at myself in the mirror, it's because I didn't do something I needed to do. I always say, did you make a difference today? No matter how small, did you live your purpose today? No matter how small, how big, or whatever the case may be, those are the things that I can lay down and rest knowing that I did for that day. And that's how you walk in it every day.
so
And it
that's your
may not
confidence.
seem like you're
That's
getting
your
there
confidence
fast,
boost.
but you
That's how
will.
you get your affirmations out. You like, did I do what I need to do? Okay, okay.
Did
I
I
like
need do
that
I
because a
that's
lot of
it.
people we all talk about that, and a lot of people talk about that, but they don't necessarily know what that means. It's not necessarily an answer that you have to give the entire world. That is an answer from self to self. Like, hey, based off of what you have today, did you do enough? Because
Hmm.
one thing that I think a lot of us don't necessarily realize is you can't fill everybody's cup if your cup is empty.
Amen.
But
Amen.
it sounds like from the well of knowledge that you're giving, you don't have a cup anymore. You got a whole jug just pouring
It's
down upon
ocean.
the people.
It's ocean. I ain't limiting myself to a cup.
Okay, and so I wanna go back to something real quick because you said you and I always like to go back to people's past because that's kind of what helps a lot of us connect. You said that you came from a teen mother. What was that like? Like what was your family like? Because I know our family, but a lot of people don't know our family. They don't necessarily understand the meaning
Oh,
of family.
I didn't appreciate it in the moment, and as you get older, I started to reflect on some things, and just as you're reflecting as a parent and some of the things that you experience, you start to get a different perception of what that was, but it was difficult to say the least. My mother, again, m- my older brother was her firstborn. She was 16 at the time. She didn't finish school, which means that she's not going to have a real decent job or whatever. She did a lot of cleaning. She did a lot of cooking in little fast food restaurants or whatever. She did whatever she could until her health started to fail, and it was tough. And it was tough. And then, eventually there was four of us, and so we didn't get to go on no trips. We didn't get to go out to eat. We didn't have the nice clothes. We didn't have whatever it was that now seems to be like the norm, or whatever the case may be. And so I do remember being in the fifth grade, having a part-time job and not making a whole lot of money, but I knew I wanted to help my mother, and whatever little dollars I made was helping the family. And I did that because while my mother didn't have much, and let me fast back because I think it's important for you to understand where it is that you came from. You got to go back and revisit, and you always got to understand the trauma. I had to understand my mother's trauma to understand how to move through my own. And my mother was the third of 13 kids, and her mother died when she was 6 weeks old, so she didn't grow up with a mother, and a lot of her sisters and brothers were out of the house by the time she was growing up. And so she latchkey kid, whatever, dad was working, doing whatever the case may be, so she pretty much raised herself, and then she became a teen mother. And so life was hard, but whatever my mother had and she could give, she gave. If she didn't have that much food and there was some kids around us, which we were around a bunch of kids that didn't always have, she tried to give a little something to them, right? If we didn't have great clothes, clean clothes, or the best clothes, she made sure they were clean. That meant she was washing them by hand and hanging them, and then she would iron them, and we would go to school. So our clothes was clean, and she would do that for the neighborhood kids. And I learned early on is that while my mother didn't have much, and people may have considered her a statistic, what she did have and what she did give, I don't know I'll ever be able to measure up. I don't know I'll ever be able to measure up. And that's the one thing and the blessing that I know that she passed on to me. And I am thankful for it to this day. And why I advocate the way I do, the way I move, the way I do with people is because of what I feel like my mother gave me and expected me to pass on.
I don't mean to interrupt your story right there, but I'm gonna tell you two things real quick. You did the best thing with the tools that you had, and you did an amazing job because all your sons made it well over the age of 25, which beats a statistic. And I also say, and this is a question that got posed to me when I was around 16, 17 years old, by a man that raised me, and I call him dad too. He asked me once, who enjoys the shade of the tree that you plant? If you were to plant a tree today, who would enjoy the shade of it? And I
That's
was
the
like,
next generations. Gotta be.
I was 16 at the time, 16, 17 at the time. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but this sounds great. And he pointed at a tree out there in the distance, and he was like, you know how long that tree's been there? And I was like, I don't know, like 5 years. And he was like, that tree has been here for 20, 30 years. The bigger the tree, the more the shade. It's oftentimes the person that plants the tree that is the one that doesn't get to enjoy the shade that it brings. And so understand it. In a lot of ways, you planted a tree. Your ceiling was my floor to step on, and that is why I'm able to do a lot of the things that I'm able to do today. So I always like to remember where we came from because a tree with no roots is going to fall over every single time.
Every time. Every time.
But
Every
it's
time.
always good to lock into those roots every now and then.
Truth.
Now, you got anything else for these subscribers today? You got any other good stories, good knowledge? Because you've been dropping
Look, I
gems
got a
all
whole
over
I look, I
the
got a whole plethora of things we could be talking on, but I ain't gonna waste your time. Maybe you'll invite me back some other time for
It
some
ain't never a
conversation.
waste of time. It ain't never a waste of
But
time.
let me tell you this, in this day in life, in this day and time, be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. You can't change nobody else, but you can change you. Be
Mm.
patient with yourself and be better to the next than they are to you, because I mean, we got enough hate going on in this world to last us a lifetime. And our parents and the generations before us experienced the same, if not worse. Be
You
patient with
know,
yourself. Be better than that. Be better than that.
always, I always hear that nowadays, and I'm a man that's traveled around, and I'm a man that I feel that I've stepped in multiple cultures. And you're right, there is a lot of hate, but there's also a lot of miscommunication. Which is why we here at the Fools Den wanted to start the conversation, because a lot of times the miscommunication and the misinterpretation leads to hate. There's actually a whole lot of love for all of us out there. We just got to
True
see it.
story. True
I
story.
appreciate you for your time, and hopefully we can get you on another episode out here. Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right. All right. Bye.